Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here, and welcome to another exciting and pulse-pounding edition of the So You Want to Be an Imagineer historical retrospective, this time covering all of Season 2. At the end of the last episode, I said that I might have to split this historical retrospective up into 5 or 6 parts. Well, really thinking back on it, I think realistically we might just have to do at least one installment for every season, which is a far cry from the 3 parts I initially started out envisioning. But whatever, we'll make it work. Most of the seasons are only going to require one video to get through, but in particular, I'm pretty sure seasons 6 through 8 is the sweet spot of the game, and there's just a whole lot to talk about when we get there, so I might have to split each and every one of those seasons up into 2 parts apiece. So we'll just see. For now, we're going to take a look at Season 2, which honestly, in my opinion, is probably one of the least memorable seasons. But there's some interesting things there, so why not? Let's dive right in. Now, Seasons 1 through 3, for all intents and purposes, are pretty much exactly the same structure. They all had 7 people in them. They all had pretty much basic black and white sort of vanilla projects. And they also kind of had a lack of twists. So, the format of these first 3 earlier seasons, and now what I love about the game is how it really evolved to encompass strategy, but we don't really see that at all until about Season 6 or 7, so stay tuned for that. But early on, what the format was all 7 people in the cast, or 6, or however many was left at the time, the judges would submit a project, and like I said the last video, it would be anything from, anything having to do with Disney really, but it would be pretty basic. Just design a dark ride, design a show, design a restaurant, stuff like that. Pretty basic tasks. And we'd give generally about a week to 2 weeks for the people to do it, and they'd have anything at their disposal to present their project with. Now, project presentation, again, is something that's really heavily evolved over the years, and I'll talk more about that in future parts. But when it came right down to it, mostly people just presented, just write-outs of their ideas. There'd be an occasional piece of handmade concept art here and there, but really mostly it was just sort of a text-based, like, when people would present their projects, they just sort of, just type it all out and just slap it on the forum, and there you go. Projects these days are much more driven by multimedia and by concept art and stuff like that. Not all of them. There's certainly been great projects, even so recent as Season 10, that have been just text. But for the most part, the presentation of the projects themselves have changed. Before I go any further with this thing, I'd like to just take a moment to kind of describe what So You Want to Be an Imagineer actually is, in case there's people watching that don't know what it is. I assume that most people watching are people that played the game before, but I want to make this video series kind of accessible to everyone and kind of maybe be a jumping off point to see if you'd be interested in playing the game or not. So with that, let me just give you a basic rundown of the rules up until this point in the game's history. The only thing that hasn't changed, like any good reality competition-like game thing, that's what I'm officially calling it, is a reality competition game thing. What hasn't changed is that at the end of every project, someone is always eliminated, except in the rare non-elimination games, but, we're not like the Amazing Race. If there's going to be a non-elimination, it's not just going to be randomly thrown in there. It's going to be for a very extraneous circumstance if someone drops out or something. But for the most part, it's just, at least in the first 3 seasons, it was people would, the judges would submit a project, people would just come up with their ideas and post them on the forum, and at the end of the day, the judges would decide consecutively which project was the weakest, and that person would be eliminated. Simple as that. And we just get down to it until there'd be a final 2. And then there'd be one final big project, usually having to do with designing a whole theme park or something to that extent. And then we'd crown a winner. So that's how the game worked in the first 3 seasons. Alright, everyone up to speed? You? Alright, let's keep going! So by far the most legendary player to come out of Season 2 was a player by the name of Jag FKB? You know, I've never really known exactly how to pronounce it. I just call him Jag. His username's basically Jag and then an F, K, and B at the end. So like I said, I just call him Jag. Jag's kind of an interesting sort of story because in Season 1, he was one of the 3 judges. Now in Season 2, he dropped out of being a judge to be a player. So this is not the first time that someone who had a hand in running the game became a player. I famously took my shot in Season 8 and basically became the Russell Hantz of the game. But again, more on that later. Oh yeah, you know, just wait for the other parts where things actually get interesting. But Jag, he was really into theatrical projects, and that was his forte. A thread of his that might still be kicking around the forum somewhere, although I'm sure it's probably locked, is Imagination the Musical, which was basically a big budget Disney Broadway show in the style of Fantasmic, but it had more of a storyline to it. And Jag worked literally for years on this one thread, just perfecting this show. So it was totally a coincidence that the final project we planned for Season 2 happened to be a musical project. But needless to say, when Jag got there, he just totally destroyed that. But more on that just a little itty bit later. First 2 people eliminated from Season 2, and again, I really wish I could remember some of the projects besides the final project, which I'll actually get into some detail about. The first 2 people eliminated were Austin and Bernstein. Austin in 7th place, Bernstein in 6th place. Now, Bernstein, I have he's just not someone who has made a name for himself on the forum at all. I think he only had a few posts before being eliminated, and I don't really think he stuck around the community. Austin, on the other hand, Austin is actually a very active member to this day of Visions Fantastic. And his run on So You Want to Be an Imagineer is obviously very limited since he got eliminated first. But nowadays, you know, I'm not sure. I should have done more research, but I believe Austin does something with the radio or something. He has some sort of personal project of his. And again, forgive me for not doing my proper research, but yeah, I just think it's interesting that so many people have played this game at this point that now it's, you'll have people who are mainstays on the forum, like Austin, and they barely even made a blip on the actual game, but they're still around the Visions Fantastic forum. Just a neat little tidbit I wanted to throw your way there. The next person to be eliminated is, sadly, Costa Freak, last season's resident underdog. I can't remember too much about Costa Freak this season, but hey, he didn't get eliminated first, which he kind of has a long history of doing when we get going on later. It definitely wasn't Costa Freak's strongest season, but it wasn't his worst either. It's just just a standard performance from him, not a lot to talk about. And then Eli So Cool, who got eliminated in 5th place in Season 1, advances 1 place up to 4th place in Season 2. Eli, again, he's one of my favorite early people because when you saw his projects, you could really see that he was taking the time, he was thinking outside of the box with everything he was doing, and shoot, I really, really wish I could remember the season or the project that he got eliminated on. But, of course, I can't, so we'll just move on to the next person. Seriously, props, Eli. You are a memorable early boot in both seasons you played in. So now we get on to the character that really made this season stand out, a character by the name of Disney Lover 4, the number 4, forever. Disney Lover Forever. He is, I believe, the first foreign contestant that we had on the show. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure he's from Puerto Rico? Is that right? Somewhere, like Puerto Rico or South America or something like that, somewhere in that region. Now, when the game first started, Disney Lover Forever clearly had a cultural barrier to get through, but I could tell in his projects that he was actually making some effort. He was delivering more consistent quality than, let's say, Costa Freak was in his first season, at least. And just like Costa Freak, he ends up in 3rd place, setting the stage again for a long line of underdog players who, at the start of the season, everyone was just like, who is this guy? He can barely even communicate with us, let alone do any good projects, and go on to really surprise everyone and make it really deep into the game. Disney Lover Forever would show up again a few times, but I think Season 2 was probably his most memorable showing. He definitely... I absolutely hate myself for not remembering any of these projects. Believe me, come Season 8, I will be properly documenting each and every creative project that comes out. But for now, just bear with me. Disney Lover Forever, he came out with a project that I really attached to, and so he was always a personal favorite of mine, and I really enjoyed the fact that he got so far. I was always very encouraging to him, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, and he gets eliminated, and who can blame him for being eliminated over arguably one of the strongest Final 2s ever in the form of Jag and Basket Buddy. So here we go, it's the final confrontation. It's the judge turned new power player versus the previous season's power player who was totally out for a vengeance. Basket Buddy put on some of his most impressive efforts in Season 2 simply because of the fact that in that season he really wanted to win. He did genuinely feel cheated out of Season 1 and getting eliminated before even the semifinals. And like I said, we totally didn't plan on Jag making the Final 2 and coming out with such a memorable project when we decided to make the Final 2 final project into a theatrical-based project. But that's exactly what happened. Mostly the final projects have to do around designing some sort of big thing, like a park or something like that. In Season 2, we kind of decided to give them a little curveball. And instead of doing anything like a park, we were like, alright, just design a whole musical production. And Jag, with already his experience designing Imagination the musical, took to it and he came out with something really extraordinary. He came out with the Sleeping Beauty musical. And what I really love about this project is that Jag was able to combine both elements of the original story's source material and famous elements from the Disney version, mix them all together in a nice creative blender, and then pop out with some seriously inspired results. One of the most notable things about the Sleeping Beauty musical was just the length itself. I mean, this thing was huge. I believe it took up like a whole page of thread posts just for Jag to post it. It was all completely scripted out, and like I said, I really admired the fact that he took a lot of cues from the original classic Sleeping Beauty ballet, but also incorporated a lot of Disney elements into it. To this day, I think it's one of the most memorable and solid projects. And the game kind of has a history of theatrical projects being a sour point for some players. Cough, cough, Season 8. Season 8. But, yeah, Jag won that season hands down with that Sleeping Beauty musical project. Basket Buddy, again, I cannot remember what project he did, but I mean, really, from the moment that Jag landed in the final two and it was a theatrical project, it was basically his for the taking. Now, Jag came back to play in Season 8, and there's some major controversy regarding him. In fact, what happened to Jag is my personal biggest regret in my entire time running the game, so we'll get to that. Season 8, people, it's gonna be a huge video. But in the meantime, that's basically all there is to talk about for Season 2. So next time I'll be going into Season 3, which had a great winner in the form of Mad About Mickey, but there's some behind-the-scenes drama in Season 3 that I'm kind of excited and nervous about sharing with you guys at the same time, so it should be an interesting video. In the meantime, sign-ups for Season 11, Where No Mind Has Gone Before, are starting on May 5th, and I'll definitely try and get this entire historical retrospective done for you guys by then. And see you later for the next part.